Rachel Caccavone, somebody who is incredibly special, has had an incredible career spanning over almost 40 years in luxury retail. If you're somebody who's looking to get into luxury retail or have been in it and want to know what it takes to be truly successful, then this is the episode for you. We're here!
Hooray.
Finally. I know we've been talking about this, Rachel, for such a long time. And I was saying just before we started recording that I'm so excited to speak to you because although we've done so many of these podcasts now and they're all amazing and everyone's got a different story to tell, albeit that we're all in the same industry, I really feel excited because I know that you've had such an eclectic career and I'm just so excited to listen to your stories. So, if you will, let's take it right back to the very, very beginning for you to sort of tell us where this passion initially came from.
Well, happy to do that. And thrilled to be here, of course.
Thank you.
So, I come from Plymouth in Devon originally, and I spent some time at Plymouth Art College. And then I thought, well, I'm going to come to London and, see what's going on up there, because Plymouth is quite small. So I came up to London, and I thought, I better need a job. And I found a job in a candle shop in Covent Garden. And it was two lovely, lovely Americans, or an American and a British couple that I had the interview with. And I thought, well, this sounds nice. It's a lovely little candle shop with lots of little ornaments and candles and all sorts of things. And I thought, well, this sounds very nice. It's a good job. They seem very lovely. So they said, okay, Rachel, we'll let you know. So I went back went back to this flat, and then I didn't hear from them. And I thought, that's strange. So I thought, I'll give them a ring. So I went down. There's no mobile phones in those days. So this is sort of early 90s, 80s. And so I went to a call box, phoned them up. And I'm like, hi, it's Rachel. I had an interview with you last week. I was just wondering how I got on. And Lou Spear, the owner, he said, oh, Rachel, we really loved you, but unfortunately, we're not going to give you the job on this occasion. So I thought, no. So I went home crying. I went back to the flat crying. And then I went down to Plymouth to see my mum. And then when I went down, I just arrived on Friday. Then Saturday morning, she said to me, there's someone on the phone for you. It's an American chap. So I said, oh, I wonder who this is. It sounds like it could be this man. Got to the phone. Hi, Rachel. You're still interested in the job? It's yours. I said, oh, right. He said, when can you start? He said, can you be in there for Monday? And I said, yeah, I can. So that's how I went back to London, started my job at the candle shop in Covent Garden. And that's where I fell in love with retail. Because
why did he change his mind?
I have no idea. Never asked him. I just thought it was. I have no idea. Maybe it must have been someone else said that they thought, and maybe they let him down. But it turned out to be 3 years of glorious fun. I got to. I think what it was, I really suddenly clicked with the customers. I really enjoyed, because I started as a sales associate first. And I worked with a very nice manager, but I really loved the customers and I loved selling, and I enjoyed all of that interaction. Then the manager left in 6 months, so he made me manager. So I was manager there for about 3.5 years. And so it involved all the other things. So I had to learn how to work with other people as a manager rather than as a on the same level kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just enjoyed it. I loved the ordering of the products. I had a chap called Ray that I'm still friends with, who we've known each other for many, many years. He used to work in another store in Parsons Green, and he used to do the candle runs. So we used to get in the van in those days and then trundle off to Parsons Green, pick up all these boxes of candles, bring them back to this tiny candle shop in Covent Garden, unbox them, put them on the shelves and all of this. So, yeah, that's how I got into it, really. So I was there for a little while, and that's where I got my passion for retail.
That's amazing, really, isn't it? That, you end up having to do a bit of everything. So you actually came into management super quickly.
And I've only ever been a manager since.
Yeah.
So this is a question, great for me. Yeah.
Incredible. This is a question, obviously, I was really keen to ask you, because when I looked at your profile, I was like, okay, well, your first job's really stating that you were a manager at George Jensen, which we're going to move on to. But I thought, what happened before that? Because so many people that will be listening to this that start on the shop floor in either a temp capacity or a sales associate at junior level and think, well, I want to be a manager eventually. So how am I going to get there? But you were super lucky. And obviously very good at what you did, for you to, in 6 months, be promoted and become a manager. So then since then, you were a manager there. Mm-hmm. What made you decide to leave?
Well, I've always been interested in makeup, and I used to wear a lot of makeup. It was sort of punky times then. And someone said to me, why don't you go and work for a cosmetics company? I know somebody who's, there's a Mary Quant that's looking for someone. So I always say kind of yes to most things. And I thought, well, I've done, 3.5 years at the candle shop. It's fantastic. But I'm very passionate about makeup as well. So I said farewell to the candle shop and had an interview with a lovely lady who worked for Max Factor, which also had Mary Quant. And my mum actually came with me, and we turned up a day early. So we went for the interview, and they said, no, you're a day early. Well, I'm keen. So I went back again the next day, and the interview was successful, and I joined Mary Quant. I went to Harrods as manager of a small concession there, and my first celebrity sale was to Judi Dench, and she bought an indigo eyeliner, which I've never forgotten, so it's a long time ago.
Oh, that's so funny. I'm definitely going to say that. We do a lot of tips and tricks videos on our social media about being, on time and a little bit too early. And we say always, be there about 10 minutes, but not turn up an hour before. But this is that one I've never heard before. Do not turn up a day early for your interview. Exactly. That's brilliant. So I actually didn't know that you had done your stint in the cosmetics and makeup world, and it seems to be that a lot of people do that. I did it as well at Chanel, and I loved it. It was really nice, and having that connection is something a little bit different than any other product category, really, with clients. And I guess that during that time, Mary Quant's iconic in the cosmetic world. What happened after that?
Well, then it was quite good, really, because it was part of Max Factor. They kept on coming up with lots of other roles within this group. So another position that came up was for a travelling group of trainers for the south of England. So I thought, well, that sounds good. I'd love to do that, do a bit of travelling as well. So I applied for that position and had a few interviews, and then was very successful and got that role. And I travelled around, the sort of south of England with another couple of ladies called Maria and Graziella. And we had a fabulous time for 6 months. And we did... in those days, they used to do the microphone makeup demonstrations. So you would stand up in boots or something like that. Do you remember all of that? Yeah, so I used to do that.
That's brilliant. I can imagine you.
Oh, it was hysterical. So it was fantastic, though, because it was more kind of hands-on, and you'd have a platform. The training was very, very intense. So in those days, you were able to smoke in the training rooms. So there was a whole load of us training, and there was ashtrays everywhere. Terrible. And I used to smoke, so I was smoking quite a lot. And they would video you doing your training. So you'd have a microphone in one hand, and then you'd have to talk through your cleansing, toning, moisturising and all that with the other hand. And it was very nerve-wracking. And then they would play the video back to the group, and then they would criticise or, constructive feedback. And I had one point, which is quite interesting, really, because when I was being videoed, I was very conscious that I was sniffing all the time, and I thought I'd really blown it, and I ran out crying at the end of it.
Oh, no.
And my trainer at the time said to the team, no, leave her, she'll come back. So it was very tough then, I feel. And so I did. I had a good cry in the toilets and came back in again, sat down. And they said, now let's play Rachel her video back of what she's done. And they played it back, and it was absolutely perfect. So I always kept that with me. When you're nervous and you feel that you're not delivering your best, you have to realise that you need to have more confidence in yourself, and not to, because I think it's only us that puts our own negatives forward. And I learnt a lot from that, because where I thought I had absolutely ruined this thing, it was just perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. And it was only my own kind of insecurities that stopped me from believing that. So now I realise that you just have to be more confident and believe in yourself more. And that's how you kind of can move on.
Is that something that you've taken with you within your management career, and something that you talk about a lot with your team?
I do. All of these things, because I think that sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and we create problems when they don't exist. So I try to, especially with younger teams that I work with, I always say to them, don't worry about things that haven't happened yet. Worry about them when they have happened, but don't worry about them unnecessarily, because you're creating problems that don't exist. You need to build your confidence and believe in yourself.
So perhaps if that situation didn't happen that day where you ran out crying, do you think you would have a different perspective?
Yeah, I may well have done. I mean, I've always been very confident, and on the on the outside, I'm very confident. And I'll always, if an opportunity comes up and I think that it's something I'm interested in doing, I will always say yes and then get on and do it. I might be a bit nervous beforehand, which I'll tell you a little small thing when we get onto George Jensen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that did make a difference. Yeah, it did. And I think perhaps I wouldn't have been so confident or been more self-critical if I'd not seen that. So it was really very, very helpful.
Well, everything happens for a reason, doesn't it? And that's a great example of that. And that's brilliant. But I want to say something, because as long as I've known you, which has been quite a long time, and I think a lot of people in the industry, have either come across you either at Selfridges or Harrods or somewhere, I always sort of know you as the jewellery person. And you've always worn great jewellery, and I know that you have an Instagram page all around your jewellery, and, you've worked for some brilliant jewellery businesses. And I had no idea, actually, that you came from the makeup and cosmetic worlds before that. So how did that transition happen?
Well, that's very interesting, because I was working for Helena Rubinstein. I kind of moved off a little way in Harrods, and I think that they were going to move to another concession or something like that. And I think it was Nick that said to me, look, you love jewellery and things like that, and you've done, quite a few years now in cosmetics and all of this. A job's come up that's been advertised in the Evening Standard, saying they're looking for a manager for an 18-carat gold jewellery company in Knightsbridge. Well, I think I was obviously in Harrods. I thought, well, it's got to be one of these sort of places around here. And I said, well, I don't know anything about jewellery. And he was saying, well, just go for it, because you love jewellery, just apply for it, which I did. So I had an interview with Pascal Jewellery, which had a concession in Harrods. And with this very, very lovely man called Jacob Isabicki, who was the owner of Pascal Jewellery. And basically, I said, look, he said, what do you know about jewellery, Rachel? And I said, well, I know that there's 22-carat gold and 24-carat gold. I said, that's about it at the moment. But I said, I'm a very good manager. And if you give me the right tools and recommend books that I can buy to read and training, I would think I would be very good for you. And he said, okay, ask me a few other questions that you just wouldn't ask anyone nowadays, which I'm not going to mention now. But anyway, they offered me the job. So I went in and I did 2 years with Pascal in Harrods with a nice team there, and made them their first £1 million.
Wow. I want to go back a little bit. We're going to come back to this, but I want to go back a little bit because, as a business, we work with Harrods, and I love Harrods, and it's amazing. And, I've been going to Harrods for so many years, and I want to go back to the time where you first started working in Harrods. How was that process for you? I mean, how different was it then to get a job in Harrods? What did you have to do? What was the process like throughout that, during that period?
Well, I found that in the early days, it was very easy to get a job, with different companies if you wanted to, because I think that mostly it was built on your reputation, people that you knew, recommendations. Then you would have an interview. I think at the most you would have 2 interviews. So it was a lot more simple than it is nowadays. I mean, I think now the average interviewing is up to 5 interviews. It can be.
Yeah.
But then it was very much on your personality. If I could get a job in jewellery then, or, just coming in and saying, look, I don't know anything about it, but I can learn. I don't know whether you can actually do that now so easily. I think
it really does depend, because I do think personality plays a huge part in every recruitment process, because you need to be a good fit for the business as well as the product category, and you need to be able to fit in very well with the rest of the team. But more so than personality, I think it's attitude. I mean, as a recruiter, I love seeing people that are willing to learn and want to learn. And if they're passionate about that, then why not, put them forward to give them that opportunity? Sometimes people that have got extensive experience don't do very well when they move jobs because they're quite set in their way. So, it swings and roundabouts really. But I get it, what you're saying. I get that, a long time ago, it was probably a lot easier. But it's interesting, actually, that you've said that it was a lot to do with sort of introductions and recommendations, where that still does happen now. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think it just seemed to be a quicker process then. I think you would get like one interview, maybe a second interview, and then the job would be offered within a week, say, something like that. So I found it a lot, I think it was a lot easier then. And I think in Harrods, they didn't have such a huge, at that time, recruitment, sort of area.
Did you still have to do a store approval?
Yeah, did store approval. Yeah, I think it's such a long time ago. I can't really remember what I did, but we did do store approval. And also, when you got a job at Harrods, you were always told that if you got a job at Harrods and you were successful and passed your store approval and your induction and everything, that this would be a wonderful thing to be on your CV for life, which is true because the standards were very, very high then. I mean, they even had like uniforms, for the cosmetics, for certainly they had really, when I worked in the cosmetics part of Harrods, they used to have like a lovely blue sort of polka dot skirt that you'd wear with a white polka dot blouse and a Harrods blazer on the top. Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yes, that was a long time ago. And it was very interesting.
No, I just remember walking through the beauty hall when I was much younger, I think before my time in retail, and it used to be white.
Yes.
And, very bright. I mean, it is still very bright, but it was like always hair up in a bun, red lipstick, very high heels all the time. It's very different now. I say to people in my assessment centre, I said, you're very, very lucky. In my time, and I'm not that old, but even so, when I started, heels were compulsory.
Yes, I know.
And we used to go home and soak our feet.
That's it.
Standing 8 hours in high heels. But now you don't have to, which is great, really. You haven't got to do that.
Feet.
What was your favourite thing about working at Harrods?
Do you know what I loved when the chairman, Mr. Fayed, used to have it? And what I loved was when he used to do his walk rounds. So you'd hear the bagpipers first, so he was coming. So he'd have like 2 or 3 bagpipers that would start walking the rounds of Harrods. So you'd hear those coming down wherever walkway or corridor it was.
Quickly top up your lipstick.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, ready to go. Here it's coming, it's coming. And then Mr. Fayed would turn up, and then he'd have all his security guards around him. And what I loved about those times is that he would meet with the customers, and the customers would stop and talk to him, and he would talk to them. He would talk to us, smile and nod and all of this. And there was a lady called Dorothy that they used to have a piano in the black perfumery hall. And every Friday, Dorothy, who was probably about getting on for late 80s at that time, used to come on in with her 2 friends, Lucan and Stanley, and she'd start playing this piano very badly. But it was like, this is what she did. But the chair, or Mr. Fayed, used to come round and they'd stand and listen to her like plonking away on these keys with her 2 friends looking at her. And then he would say to one of the security guards, go and get Dorothy a leg of lamb and her 2 friends. So she'd get this huge amount. They'd get all this meat from the meat halls that he would send away with her. Until she sadly...
Not a box of chocolates.
No, a great load of meat. I think it was obviously the value of meat was important then, as it is now.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
I know.
So, a story that I want you to tell us is you met your husband.
I did, yes.
Not on the shop floor.
Well, what it was, I was a perfumery girl then in those like polka dot outfits and blazers, and my husband Nick was a van driver. Well, I had never met him in the store at all, but my friend and I used to go to
Van driver for Harrods.
For Harrods, yeah, for Harrods. So we were both in Harrods together. So he was doing that. And there was a lot of Christmas parties at Harrods. And my friend Joe, who was also from perfumery, and I used to go to all these parties. And there was one for the food and wine hall part of Harrods, and we'd got tickets for it. We weren't going to go, but we decided we would go at the last minute on this Saturday night, and it was at this Minories place in Tower Hill. And I walked through the door, and I saw this group of young men sort of standing in front of me, and I saw one in a purple shirt, and I thought, oh, he looks nice. Who is he? So I found out who it was. It was Nick, the van driver. And eventually we started talking in this evening, and then we exchanged numbers, and we went out for a date the following week. We had a lot of things in common. which was very strange. I think it was a destiny that we should have met. But if he comes to talk to, he can tell you more about that. Yeah. But we had a lot in common. We got on really well, both in retail, and we got married the following year.
Amazing.
So it was like love at first sight, really.
He's had a lot of titles, Nick, hasn't he? Nick the van driver, and he's Nick the
yeah.
doorman. So, he's famous in this industry.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. So, you don't need Tinder, you just need the shop floor.
That's it. Exactly. Well, it's nice to meet face to face, isn't it, through the old traditional kind of ways. But I think what's worked for us is that we're both in retail, so it's been great because we know the hours that it entails and the last minute late nights and stock takes and all these sort of things. And in his roles as van driver and working later on for the chairman, there was a lot of extra hours. But because we're both in this business, it's easy for us to understand each other.
Yeah.
I think it could be quite difficult if somebody was in a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 role. They might not be able to see their other half as much as they'd like to.
I think we find that a lot, actually, and I think people try to come away from the shop floor for that reason. But it's a shame because I think as you have had, and so many other people that I've spoken to have had really incredible careers working on the shop floor and in retail and really in touch with the clients. But yeah, of course, the hours can have a strain sometimes if the person that you're with isn't in the same world. So it's worked really well for you, which is nice. And do you think that's sort of kept you in the industry for as long as it has?
Yeah, well, I love it anyway. I don't think I'd ever want to do anything else. Retail I love, management I love, the different roles I've done. I've taken the best out of all of them, and even to this day, I always think that I'm like a retail chameleon, really. I can work very happily in a department store. I can work very happily in a standalone store, in a boutique, because I love what I do. And I also love to work with the teams that I work with, and especially some of the younger, sort of managers coming up and things like that. It's nice to be able to share your knowledge and give some tips along the way if you can,
The younger generation are completely engrossed in technology, so they don't have the opportunity to interact as much face to face.
Exactly.
And retail's all about that. So the challenge really is, how do they do what we do and did with that small talk? They just don't do it anymore. Because everything's on an iPad or on a phone and everything. I hate walking around the stores now and seeing people standing there on their phone. I can't bear it. It is, a way of working,
yes.
But personally, I can't bear it. But what's your opinion on it?
Well, I've never really been very keen on people on their phones all the time, because even if they're doing work, to a consumer or to your customer coming in, it looks like you're just on the phone all the time.
Yeah.
And so I used to sort of manage it so that they would only be allowed, you could only use your mobile phone as a work phone if you had another member of staff with you, so there was always someone ready to meet and greet the customer. But, as you were saying, with all this technology, what I find now is that some of the teams that I work with find it very difficult to make small talk, because they're just not used to doing it. Whereas we're used to, I was before mobile phones, so I, talking all the time and chatting away. But they literally, if they're talking to a customer, they don't really know how to get the conversation going, so we have to really go back to basics, so the what, why, when, where, hows, and I spend an awful lot of time with teams, sort of saying, to help you along, why don't we, sort of talk to our customers when they come in? How are you today? What brings you in to visit us? Oh, you're looking for this. Are you going on holiday? Where are you going? And start asking lots of questions so that you can build a relationship with your customer. Try some small talk, especially at the till point when they've made a sale. There's nothing worse than silence.
Can't bear it.
So you've just invested your money, and then nothing
Bye.
Going on.
Off
Yeah,
you go. No.
Bye.
No, I think it's soft skills, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's super important, I think, in day-to-day life. Having great soft skills are crucial in any client relationship role, whether that is in retail or anything else.
Yeah.
People want to feel valued. They want to feel that you actually care about them, and not just about the fact that you've just put their money in your till. I think it's why are you here? What's brought you here? What can I do to make you want to come back again?
Yes.
People buy from people.
Yeah.
And I say this, I think that comment is made on every single podcast of mine, but it is so true. And why do people want to buy from people? They buy from people that make them feel good.
Exactly.
And how are you going to make them feel good? Through conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
So personally, I couldn't agree more. I know it's a way of working. I know that clients find it a lot easier to be contacted via WhatsApp and all of that. And I get it and it works. But on the shop floor, you need to be there, available, ready, open for your clients to come in and feel comfortable to speak to you. I hate walking onto a concession or into a boutique and seeing somebody that's on their phone. I feel like I'm disturbing them. I just personally don't like it. And I think that the more that we go back to basics and go back to small talk, asking about the weather.
It's interesting, because I feel that a lot of companies now are doing this as part of their, onboarding training, because they've obviously realized as well, it's not just happened overnight, this has been going on for a while. And now it's coming into the training, sort of curriculum kind of thing, where they are helping people to make these conversations with their customers and explaining the benefits of it.
Well, it is a massive
Schmoozing
benefit.
And small talk, yeah.
Absolutely, because we have to create a magical experience in store. Otherwise, what's bringing the clients in store when they can buy everything online?
Yes.
Whatever it is that they want, it's at the touch of a button, really. So we've got to ensure that experience in store is one that is memorable and entices the clients to actually come back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll all be out of jobs.
Exactly.
I want to move on now to the most recent part of your career. So we're going to move to George Jensen. So were you in Harrods for George Jensen, or were you outside of Harrods? You're in a boutique.
Well, what it was, with George Jensen, I was with Pascal Jewellery still, and I'd done 2 and a bit years, something like that, just got my retail jeweller's diploma. And I just tentatively just went to see if there was another opportunity, because I'd got this retail jeweller's diploma and I thought maybe there was a bigger role, because with Pascal it was only that role and that was great, but I was looking for more. And a position came up as a boutique or a store manager for George Jensen on Bond Street. So I thought, well, this sounds good. Let's have an interview and see what's what. So I had a nice interview with my director, and then I had an interview with the CEO, and they offered me the role. So I thought, great, it was confidential because at that time they had a manager there and it was a replacement of that one. However, the day before I was due to start, I had an email from my new director to say that, it's fine. The existing manager's staying and you're now general retail manager. Well, I nearly died. I don't know. How can I be a general retail manager when I'm just, but anyway, I thought, well, what can you do? You've got to go for it. So we drove up to Bond Street to have a look at the boutique again one night, just before I was to start on the Monday. And of course it was beautiful and so luxurious, and again a little bit of self-doubt crept in. I thought, no, can I do this? This is just huge. Well, you have to now, Rachel, let's get on with it. So that's what happened. So I turned up on the Monday, and somebody there didn't realise it was me and told me to go away. The shop wasn't open. So I was early again, of course. Yeah. And I said, no. I'm working. And that's how it came about, really. So I was very fortunate to be elevated to that position so quickly.
So what challenges did you face in that role? Because I can imagine there being quite a few going into that setup. And not realising, especially, that the person that you thought was exiting the business is actually now staying. So what happened?
Well, there was, you're right. There was a lot of resistance at first. And it was just a matter, really, of just not going in, gung-ho, I am, the new general manager, you do what I do. I don't do that. I like to work with the teams for a while to see the dynamics, see what's going on. You can't make any decisions or any changes that you might need to make if you don't know how things are running well. So I took my time and just observed and got to know the teams. And eventually, I think for me, you have to be firm, fair, and friendly in whatever order it needs to be. So at sometimes I needed to be a bit firmer. So we had for the jewellery repairs, we had one lady solely looking after jewellery repairs. And all the repairs were taken in and on lots of bits of paper that would fly around all over the place. They weren't kept in any particular place. And I listened to a customer come in one day and said, I've come to pick up my jewellery repair. And the answer was, well, the jewellery lady's on holiday now, and she won't be back for 2 weeks, so you'll have to come back in 2 weeks.
Could you imagine that?
Well, exactly. And then so we had to address that. So what I have, the managers' meetings and everything, like all the team meetings. So I said, look, I overheard this. It's not very good customer service, obviously, and we need to make everyone responsible for every repair that they take in for each customer. And you can build a relationship with your customer this way, and we can do this. So that was okay. That was understood, and it made sense. But what the tricky part was, I said, now we've got lots of papers floating around with information on and this and that. I said, what I've done is I've created this wonderful docket book, and it's got 3 parts. You've got one part that you can fill in for the customer for the jewellery that goes to them, so they've got a receipt. You've got another part that goes with the repair, and another part that stays in the book. So I had someone go, well, it won't work. We don't do it this way, Rachel, it won't work. I said, well, we're going to give it a go. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back to the other way. But I'm fairly confident that this is going to work. So it's going to be a lot of those conversations and things like that. So that's how it came about. And then sometimes you have to have difficult conversations with standards and things like that. Dress codes. One of the team had lots of pets, I think, and used to wear a lot of black. And it was just covered in pet hair, so you just sort of point out that you need to just get a roller brush and do all of that. And then a few other processes. We managed to get a stockroom manager in to help with the deliveries. And then eventually the manager, who didn't really... The reason that it was a little bit frustrating was he wasn't so keen on customer facing, but he knew all of the codes of the products by heart, every single one. So eventually... I thought it would be good for him to be the stockroom manager. And we approached him and put this forward to him, and he was absolutely thrilled. And to this day, he's not working for Jensen now, but he's working for another very, very high-end jewellers as their stockroom manager controller. See, so it was the right person for the right job.
Well, this is it. And I think it's good that, in management, it's very, very important to play people to their strengths and to identify their strengths quite quickly on. And that's a really, really great example of that. And it shows, actually, if you've done that now, he's been able to flourish in his career and hopefully very happy. So that's, I'm assuming, what sparked your passion for jewels, which created this magpie in you.
Well, it was
all
fantastic
things sparkly.
To work.
So, why did you decide to move on from there?
What, from Jensen?
Yeah.
Well, it was a fabulous role, and I'd had some great opportunities to set up concessions within that role in Harrods and Selfridges, which was wonderful. And I'd been there for about 6.5 years. And I felt that I had done as much as I could do in that role. And there was so many different parts of it that I had worked on. There wasn't very much more that I felt I could do. So I thought, well, let's see, if there's something else that's interesting. And I think that... along the way, Harrods approached me for luxury jewellery manager there. So I thought, well, let's go back to Harrods again.
Was Nick still at Harrods at that time?
He was, yeah. He was, yeah.
So even better. So you set up the concessions for George Jensen itself, which is Harrods. And, that must have obviously come with some challenges. What do you think the differences are when working in a concession and working in a boutique?
Well, in a concession in a department store, you've got 2 managers basically, haven't you? You've got the people that you work for, and then also the department store as well. So there's a challenge there, which I think a lot of people find difficult, because you're obviously reporting to the brand that you're working for, but then obviously you're in the home of the department store, so you've kind of got two people that you need to report to and to manage that well. You have a lot of directors that come round from department stores that will probably want to talk to you about your business. So you're going to be, sort of working with them very closely, and also with your own directors and managers of your own business as well.
So a lot of stakeholder management.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So when you went back into Harrods, did you feel like I'm home now? I'm back at home.
Well, I was very excited to be back.
Yeah.
And it was lovely, really, but it was a big role. And my role was looking after a retail manager and then all the brands in the luxury jewelry room. And I did enjoy it, but I felt that I need to be more front facing. I like to work with the teams, with the customers more closely. In this role, it was a bigger role, the biggest role probably I've done. And I felt that I was maybe behind the scenes more, with more strategic planning and budgeting and things like that. And I enjoyed it, and I learned a lot, but I have to say it wasn't ideal for me, because I do need to be more front of house, as it were. Yeah. So that's where I ended up back in Selfridges for the Wonder Room.
Yeah.
Which was lucky, because they approached me, and I was very fortunate to have got that role. It was wonderful.
What was the difference then in terms of the recruitment process for the role at Selfridges as opposed to at Harrods? Because again, department store, but very different, and they have very different styles. And of course, Selfridges is incredible. It's very, very, very well known for being the best department store in the world, and I love Selfridges as much as I love Harrods, but it's very different. And you can feel it instantly when you walk through both stores, the differences. So what was the recruitment process like for you to then go from Harrods to Selfridges?
Well, I found, as we know, Harrods is very, very luxury, isn't it? And it's very structured. It's very formal still, even though it's more relaxed these days. It's still got that Harrods personality. So the recruitment, process is a lot more structured, a lot more formal, and not so sort of, you can't express yourself as much, you can't be more so creative. Where Selfridges, as we know, is changing all the time. It's very creative. It's got a fast pace about it. So the recruitment process is very different then. They're looking for creatives. They're looking for people that are energetic, that can really kind of think on their feet. So I always think that if you want to take a managerial role and you need support and structure in your role, which is great, then go for somewhere like Harrods. But if you want to learn fast on your feet and just fly, make your own decisions and get going, then Selfridges is the one to go to. That's the difference I found in both of them.
So what did you enjoy about your role at Selfridges? Because the Wonder Room is, it's incredible. It's got the most renowned brands in the luxury jewelry world, as is Harrods, but it is a different feel altogether. What happened in that role? What did it entail?
Well, of course, it was a dream to me, because I had all these jewels that I could just try on all the time, and just go around to the meetings and showcase them. So I got well known for putting on high value pieces of jewelry from Chanel or Boucheron or whatever, and then going up to the 8:30 morning briefs with the other managers and showcasing these fabulous things. So that was wonderful. I sort of added a bit more structure, I suppose, and had regular, sort of monthly, weekly meetings with the teams, with the concession managers, because it was very different, because it was all concessions in the Wonder Room, so they managed their own business. And for me, as manager on the Selfridges side of that room, then I needed to bring in the Selfridges support. So where Harrods has Harrods Rewards, Selfridges have Selfridges Experiences. So a lot of the feedback that we would have at the meetings is that it's very easy for customers to buy at Harrods to get their rewards points, but what does Selfridges do? So we then sort of did more of an experience for the concession managers in Selfridges, so that they would know their customers, they would know what they liked, cigars that they liked, wines that they liked, all these things. So we would support them by offering a Selfridges experience with high value purchases, such as a hamper filled full of fabulous things for their clients. So we would do something like that. And I actually used Nick as well in this role, because we had, as the doorman of Selfridges at this time, we had a fantastic initiative going for Selfridges where we had these little yellow minis, and they would be taking sort of Christmas gifts to VIP clients. It'd be delivered in the minis, or the clients might buy something and take them home within a certain mile radius around London. So I thought, well, why don't I use Nick to deliver something lovely to VIP clients? So he could sit in the back of the mini and then get out and then present the gift, which is what we did. So
That's
we
amazing.
did things like that. Then we would do experiences for men that had difficulty finding the right engagement ring. So we'd offer a service there where we could guide them through all of the options that they had. So it's really like building the communication up. We did an event where bank holidays, where Bond Street Chanel or Boucheron were closed on the bank holiday then, we would then ask them if they would give us for this particular bank holiday some very, very high value pieces of jewellery that we would showcase for that day only, where customers could come in and look at it and buy if they wanted to on those particular days. So we kind of used all of those options. So I was able to do that and think creatively, and then have Selfridges, behind me to say, yeah, do it, Rachel, that's fine. It's wonderful.
I think honestly, it's so amazing when you have free reign and autonomy to be able to do such amazing things in your role and create such brilliant experiences. And I think as a manager, it's all well and good. And I've had various conversations with people that have worked in management where, of course, it's about the people and about your team and building them up and making sure that they are played to their strengths and all of this. But to be able to really implement such incredible things for the clients to have, as you mentioned, great experiences is really special, and it shows how creative you are as an individual. And were you able to then really run with that? Were they all your ideas?
Yeah. And it was fantastic. Yeah, these were things that hadn't been done before. So I think they have been done since, but I think we started off, when I went in there to try and think things differently. They didn't have any meetings or anything like that prior to when I joined for the teams, for the concession managers, to talk openly about, what their successes were, what their frustrations were. And for me, it was great because I was kind of the conduit for Selfridges to help support them and meet, with their directors as well. And it was great. So we had a really good 3 years, and we had some very interesting clients. We had some very big sales from our princesses. We closed the store one night, I think, for one. And I think she bought up most of the watches from Bulgari, and the funny thing was, she paid in cash, and they didn't have the cash machine that normally would count it all. And I think it was £2 million.
Oh my God!
And it had to be counted over a day, I think it was, to count this without the machine, because it obviously wasn't working or wasn't available at the time, which was very exciting.
So you just wouldn't hear of that now,
No.
would you? No one's really allowed to pay in cash anymore.
Exactly,
So was that your sale then?
It wasn't my sale, but I was part of the Selfridges support team for the brands. But she was from personal shopping, I believe, and she came over every so many years and decided to purchase lots of fabulous things for all her friends, which was lovely.
I was a friend.
Yeah,
really.
me too. We all
That's
did.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of your own, you're obviously very much a customer-focused person, regardless of your management career or anything like that. It's very, very clear that you're obsessed with clients and their experience and them having a wonderful time when they come into store. And we talk about client experience so often and how clients are being made to feel, and it really sets the tone for the brand, whether it's Selfridges as a whole or an individual brand that's standalone. What would you say your personal most memorable moment was, either at Selfridges? I mean, we're going to move on to your other jewellery experiences later on, but where you made a significant sale, and how did that happen?
I had a fabulous sale. It wasn't in the £2 million mark, but I think it was about 60,000, something like that, which was because I had mostly been managing and not selling so much. But in this role, this was with Anushka Jewellery, and she does this fabulous thing called My Life in 7 Charms. So somebody can come in and choose 7 charms and have them made for experiences or memories that they want to celebrate. So Anushka will make 7 fabulous charms, and they started around £15,000 each, something like that. And I had a customer that I worked with very closely, and he did My Life in 7 Charms for his wife.
Oh.
So she loved skiing. So one of those charms was a ski lift made of diamonds and rubies. They had 3 dogs, so they had the dog little paws put into this charm. They had a cat as well, so they had a beautiful cat, you know, black diamonds, white diamonds, rubies, sapphires, all sorts of things. 7 fabulous charms. So that takes a bit of time because you need to work very closely with your customer. You need to get to know them, obviously, and you need to find out their story, you know, and find out best of how we're going to, you know, create this wonderful, memorable experience for them, which is, you know, for £60,000 is a real like investment.
Amazing.
So that was really fantastic. I enjoyed that a lot. And
what I really like about that, and sorry to interrupt you, is that retail in general, we talk about storytelling so much, and I think with something like that, that's the ultimate thing, isn't it? Where you as the consumer then are able to tell your own story through a product, which is amazing. You were at Selfridges for 3 years, and then you decided to move on. What was it that actually made you, pushed you, I guess, or enticed you to make that move from Selfridges? Because it's such an incredible role. You did such amazing things there. I'm sure you were hugely valued as a really significant member of staff in that room, you know, and people still talk about you there now. So it must have been really difficult for you to make that decision.
Well, you know what it was? I felt that I had, you know, worked very much with all the concessions and supported them for this time. And obviously it's a wonderful position to have. But I kind of longed to go back to working just for a brand myself, where I would have a team of staff that I could work closely with and work directly for a brand, a jewellery brand. So I went to Theop Finel. Well, they came to me and then I went to them, which was great. Yeah.
I loved Theop Finel as a brand. I
Yeah.
remember they had that beautiful boutique in Chelsea.
Yes,
were you there? Were you at that store?
I did pop in there, but I was in the Harrods one,
Yeah.
but I did go up there for meetings and things and popped in Fulham, wasn't it?
Yeah, Fulham Road.
He's
I
moved
remember.
now, though.
Really?
Yeah, to where the Chelsea pensioners are.
Oh.
They've got a whole new beautiful place there.
It's a really amazing brand, actually, Theop Finel, because it's incredible jewellery, extremely, you know, high-end metals and jewels, etc. But it's really individual. I think it suits you, actually, because it's very creative. So it sort of matches your personality. Did you not? Is that what sort of...
Yeah, exactly. I've always loved Theop Finel, so I was absolutely thrilled to work with him. But what I love most is that he's in his workshop all the time, and he has all his craftsmen around him who've been with him all his life, really. So what the joy of that is that, again, you can give your customers a fabulous experience because you can have bespoke jewellery made and literally bring them up to the workshop and see how their jewels are made from start to finish. So that was wonderful, really, really beautiful.
And quite different, actually,
Yeah.
quite unusual to many other jewellery businesses.
Yes.
You've been approached quite a lot in your career, you know, and it seems as though either through recommendation or being headhunted or the brand themselves seeking you specifically for their business. What do you think's different about you? Why do you think this is the case? Because there are so many talented people in retail, but you're obviously quite special. So what do you think it was about you that was attractive to these amazing brands?
I think I've got a lot of energy and a lot of passion for what I do. And I think that shines through. I'm a very, very positive person, and I love retail. And I think that I learn as well. I mean, I always sort of think I don't see myself as a dinosaur, say. I evolve with lots of changes. And obviously, having been in retail for over 40 years now, you know, I was, you know, just started with emails and those things. I used to at the beginning think, my goodness, why are we not picking up the telephone to say what we want, but we're doing it all the time, and I had to learn all this stuff. So I've evolved and moved with the times, which I think is a great help. I think you do need to have a very open mind, and you need to accept lots of different challenges. It's not saying that all of them are going to be great for you, but I think you need to just move with the times, be confident, know your trade, know your product. I mean, I have to say that when we talk about interview process, and very recently, I sat in with another manager on an interview that he was doing, and it was for there's a candle company. And I said to the person that we were interviewing, what is it about our company that you really love? The jewelry. Oh, I said, sorry. I said, did you say jewelry? Yeah. Oh, we actually don't do jewelry. Oh, I'm really sorry. I haven't done any research. So we stopped the interview then. And then I had a nice chat with her. And I said, look, it's very important that if you are going for a role, you do need to know what role you're going for. Because how can you put your best self forward if you don't know what it is that you're putting your best self forward for? Yeah, I've never seen that before in all my...
Neither have I. No, I haven't. I mean, we've had candidates that we ask them, and they say, oh, sorry, I've applied for so many different positions.
Yes.
Which one specifically are you calling me about? And even then, I don't like that. But that's up there,
unusual,
actually.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's up there. I love the jewellery. Well, actually, we don't sell jewellery. Are you in the right? You come to the right interview, Oh dear. No, that's up there.
Yeah,
that's definitely up there.
That's a good one.
Has there ever been a time, Rachel? I mean, look, it's so obvious how passionate you are about this industry and how much you love it and how good you are at it. But has there ever been a time where you've perhaps doubted it or felt that maybe enough's enough?
I don't think so, really. It's a good question, though. But I think, I mean, maybe you can get tired sometimes, and maybe with, some of the stores that stay open longer, you can, I mean, admittedly, with some of them that close at 10 o'clock and whatever, you can get quite tired with that, and you can kind of question whether, it's too late, really, to be getting home at like 11, 12. And especially as a manager, because there are times if you have sickness, and you might be on an early shift and you have to cover a late shift, you are doing some very long days. So if I ever had any doubts, it would probably be around those types of things. But generally, I think because I'm very happy with everything and love what I do, I tend to, and I think just naturally I've got a very optimistic personality, which I'm blessed to have. And it helps me a lot because I just sort of can get through most of these things. So I imagine that would be my closest to doubting anything, yeah.
Do you think that's the key attribute then to be successful in retail?
Yeah, I think you should be, yeah. I mean, there's nothing worse than, I think we've all had them, managers or people that you've seen in the past that come in with a very dull kind of way. And how are you going to motivate? I mean, there's that old sort of thing where they say that you should leave your troubles behind at the door and then come in. We can't all be upbeat, but you do have to be, I think you need to feel that you are on a stage and you have got a team that you do need to work with. You can't always be super high, but you do need to be positive and motivated as much as you can.
I say that so often. I say when you think about the shop floor as though it's a stage, and you have to leave everything backstage, and you are there to perform. It is a performance. It's retail theatre, isn't it? Your clients actually don't. As awful as this sounds, they don't actually care what's going on in your personal life. So when you get onto the shop floor, it's your job to perform and to give them a show. And I think that's what makes the experience so special, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So, what do you think the highlight has been of your career?
Ooh. Wow, gosh, I don't know, really. I mean, there's so many highlights, because I've done so many different roles. There's so many wonderful things I've experienced. I mean, highlights. I was very lucky that when I joined Helena Rubinstein many years ago, that their conference that they had every year, they do one in the UK and one abroad. I joined when we were going to New York. So that was a highlight. So we had a wonderful conference in New York, and then we were given a limousine to pop into lots of them and we were told that we could tell the driver to go where we wanted to. So we did. We went all over the place. So that was a highlight. I worked for another company who specialised in silk scarves and ties, and I was doing something selling into the department stores. That was fantastic because I had 10 days in Lake Como and the silk factories. Some of the people I've worked with have been highlights as well. There's some people that I've, sort of recruited that have gone on to be fantastic managers. So, that part of my role has given me a lot of highlights too. Making big sales in jewelry have been a highlight to me. Meeting, lots of very interesting people along the way. I mean, I kind of feel that sometimes people think that retail is not the best job to be in. And I would disagree with that completely. I think it is, you make it what you want to make it. It's a wonderful job that can give you opportunities to travel the world. You meet fantastic people along the way, great managers, great mentors, friends, colleagues, all of this. You learn so much, whatever you do in retail. It's a skill to be working in retail. You have to be a psychologist, you have to be a salesperson, you have to be a mother, I suppose, father, whatever, to people. You have to be support. There's so many different facets. And I think it's, in some respects, it's very underrated. And I think it's a skill to be in retail long term. And I would recommend anyone at any age to come on board and join us.
I think it's therapy. I think when you're dealing with clients, I think it's therapeutic. If you are going through something and, I think perhaps when you have to entertain your clients, it helps you to forget whatever it is. You have to put on this performance and do a show, which is lovely. And I think if you're forced to be happy because you have to give a great experience to your clients, you naturally then become it. You evolve into that. True. Yeah. You know very well that I love retail. I'm obsessed with it, and I think it's an industry that it's almost should be a rite of passage. I think everybody should do their stint. I think it's an amazing way to meet new people, to network, to learn so much about human beings, because you have to meet different people every single day. You have to adapt to them to ensure that, they're having a great experience, because what one person sees as a great experience, someone else may not. So to be able to have the amount of experience that you've had is so invaluable. But have you ever felt that, well, I guess the question is really, have you ever not been able to satisfy a customer? Because I think that you're the only person I've ever met that is just constantly happy all the time, and you are magical when you're on the shop floor, and you create such an amazing experience for every client that walks in, and whatever day it is, you're just upbeat and happy. So have you ever encountered a client that doesn't respond well to you?
Yes, I have.
No,
I have. I've had, I'm always like, when customers come in, how are you today? What brings you to visit us, etc. And I was trying to make some conversation. I think we both had the same birthdays at 1961 or something. Like, I said, yes, me too. And then she went, well, thank you. I'm just, if I'd just like to browse now, please. And just cut me, sort of short. Well, okay, fine. I'm not for everyone. Let's leave that one then.
That's funny.
And that's you do come across. I mean, you can't be everybody's cup of tea. I understand that. So that's why we have lots of different personalities. Working in an environment, customer facing.
Well, that's it. And I think just going off of that, you've been doing this a very long time. You've managed incredible teams. You've had very successful teams. You've been very successful yourself. So, and you've been a manager for the majority of your retail career. In fact, most of it actually. What is it that you look for when you're recruiting for your team?
I look for a spark of enthusiasm and passion. And it doesn't matter where it, comes from. I'm looking for something different. I'm looking for someone that's got a real passion for why they're, let's take our lady that didn't know what she was coming for an interview. Definitely not. But I'm looking for somebody that's looking to, because I think that when you're interviewing, you're interviewing a lot of people, and for the interviewer, it can get a little bit boring sometimes. So I'm looking for someone that's going to, make me excited about why they're with me. If they're looking for, I often say, what's your favorite, product? What do you really love? I don't want to hear, ideally, like the standard, like if it was, say, Bulgari or something, or the Serpente, ring or whatever. I want to hear something different, like maybe the Diva collection with Elizabeth Taylor, inspired by Elizabeth Taylor's eyes, something like that. I'm looking for a spark and a bit of excitement and passion. It's difficult to find sometimes.
It is difficult to
But
find.
I found it a few times with people that have come from very, very different backgrounds who I've taken on, not because they know anything about the product, like it happened with me with my first jewellery job, but because they've got passion, excitement, they love retail, they love customers, and they've gone on to do really, really well. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for a spark of excitement and passion and something interesting to say about why they're coming for the role.
A question I want to ask you, because you are so happy and optimistic all the time whenever I've been in your company and so passionate about this industry. I remember when I first spoke to you, it was actually just coming out of the pandemic. How did you find that, not being able to connect constantly with people and being off of the shop floor and having to sell? Because I remember where you were working at the time, having to try and sell remotely. How did you adapt to that?
Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it? It was a very difficult time. And, we had all the, sort of enforced sort of having to be at home for a long time. I mean, I was quite lucky at the time because we did a lot of Zoom meetings and things like that. No, it was very difficult. I mean, it was challenging, I must admit. I kept in touch with a lot of the customers. We did sort of WhatsApp calls and things like that, which was great. But I think everybody had their own kind of, sort of things that they were getting on with and challenges. So everyone kind of stayed quite quiet for a while. So it was difficult, yeah, because, you do want to be meeting your customers. And it was lovely when we came out of it. So we could all come back together again for a short while and then go back, where we came from. So, yes, I suppose that would have been a challenge for me, really. But I did manage to keep in touch either by email or the odd WhatsApp face-to-face. And
Am I right in thinking that throughout the pandemic you made quite a substantial sale?
Well, in the pandemic, I think this was the final of the My Life in Seven Charms. So that's what happened through there. That was finalised
That's
through
what
that
I
time.
remember,
So
yes.
we could go through all of these things quite easily anyway, just by our Zoom meetings together. So, yeah, that was finished then. So that was very good.
So now,
Yeah.
but no longer in jewellery. It's almost like you've done a 360 turn where you're back with candles. And I
Yes,
don't know if we're allowed to name the brand, so we won't. But
Yeah.
what took you away from jewellery, almost gone back to the beginning with candles and fragrance? And
Yeah. Well, this was the pandemic, really. This was like post everything coming back. I was made redundant, unfortunately, from my Anushka brand because we couldn't. I was working at Burlington Arcade managing that. And that was great, but we couldn't renew the lease and there was nowhere for me to go. So I did a kind of like many people did after the pandemic. We had to take a sidestep into different areas. So that's exactly what I did. So I that's how I ended up really where I am now. I've gone full circle. I did a little bit of time with fabulous Heston's beds, which was wonderful, and learnt a lot about this wonderful Jan Ride, who's the owner of Heston's beds, beautiful beds, and I had a great time with them. But I'd also had interviews while I was looking for roles while I was made redundant with this group that I'm with now, and they came and said, look, we've got this fabulous position for a boutique manager in Marylebone High Street. And I thought, well, yes, because I'm back to this luxury brand now. It's going to be fast paced. I'll have a new team. And I feel, well, why not go full circle to where I started in the candle shop in my 20s?
amazing,
Yeah,
isn't it?
very strange.
So going back to your 20s, the question I have for you is, what advice would you give to that 21-year-old self?
Well, I've
she's made a
prepared
note.
it. Yes, it's a difficult one,
Because
really,
going back to the very beginning of your career, knowing about all of these experiences that you've had, really incredibly eclectic, different types of products, different teams, different department stores. What's the advice you would give?
So for my 21-year-old self, I would say always embrace everything and say yes to everything, because that's how you're going to learn. I think I would also say always give that little bit extra, if it means just coming in, not saying coming in hours before your shift, but making sure that you start your day with an extra 20 minutes to spend in the morning and in the evening, so that you're going in with the right, sort of headspace. And always to support your colleagues, particularly because they're going to, support you through all of the time that you're there. But I think the most important thing I would say to my 21 self is like, don't take anything too hard. Go with the flow, say yes, learn, and embrace everything, and that way you'll do really well.
What was the quote that you wanted to
Well,
share?
my quote, yes, I know this is my Richard Branson. So I love Richard Branson. I think he's very much for his workers, as I am for my frontline retail team. So this is my what I will end on then is he says a quote, like he says, if somebody offers you an amazing opportunity, but you're not sure you can do it, say yes and then learn how to do it later. And I feel that that's my mantra as well. So thank you, Richard.
Well, thank you, Rachel, actually, because I think that that's something that everybody should think about, and it's something that I definitely live by. I think it's a brilliant quote, and I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you today and just hearing your stories, and I'm sure that anyone listening will be inspired by the career that you've had, and hopefully we'll keep them in retail as long as you have been in there.
I hope so. Thank you, Stephanie. It's
Thank
been
you
really
so
lovely
much.
talking to you.
And you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.